A little piece of me is almost gone. Like, it feels like a tiny piece of my soul is gone.
They're destroying your people.
Right.
A mini Holocaust.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't have happened again, and it's happening. So you're shocked to your core. Elizabeth, thank you very much for coming all the way to Brooklyn, for crossing the bridge.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start from the very beginning. Your family did flee Soviet persecution. So if you can talk a little bit about that and about how that experience have shaped who you are today.
Sure. I obviously was not a part of it. I was born here in the United States, but because I spent majority of my adolescent years with my grandparents, I would say it played a really significant role in shaping me and who I am, because there was not a moment that went by where my grandfather decided that we should play a game or have fun or really do anything without him reminding me of where I come from and what it took for my grandparents and parents to get to the United States and what they fought through and how lucky I am to be here. And I guess the responsibility also that I have to be, a proud Jew, something that they could not be back where they were from. So there was, again, not an opportunity lost with my grandfather, who made sure that I knew what I had as a Jew and the responsibility I had because of where they came from and because of those that came before me who couldn't be proudly, openly Jewish, to kind of push through that and shout it from the rooftops.
So your grandparents come from a place where you're just not allowed to be Jewish. It's dangerous, literally. Here you come to America, and obviously you can be more Jewish. How does that manifest, that sort of, that toughness and that Jewish pride experienced by your grandparents and yourself, who has, on the one hand, seemingly an easier time to be Jewish, but there are different sort of challenges that we experience here in America. If you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, as lucky as we are in 2025, I would say it has always been not without a challenge to be Jewish, right? I think in every generation, no matter who you are and where you are, there is some kind of a challenge. I think it's fair to say we all feel that challenge right now. I think especially after October 7th, we all know what we feel inside. And I guess we're reminded of the challenges of those that came before us and kind of also our ignorance when we didn't believe that they would happen in our generation. Like I said, my grandfather reminded me almost too often what it means to be a Jew, and very often the pain that comes with that. And as much as I listened, I don't know how much I believed him until I grew up and realized anti-Semitism is very much still around. It's possibly, I think, getting worse right now. And obviously after October 7th, knowing not only what people are capable of doing to Jews, but also how little much of the world will ever care. So I'd say we all feel the challenge of being Jewish right now, even more so than we did a few years ago. But for me, as someone who knows what my grandparents and parents fled from, like you said, now is the time, because of the challenges, to stand up more so than ever before, because I can. My grandfather always told me how he would go for high holidays, but also he would try for Shabbat with his father, for example, to go to synagogue, leaving my grandmother and his mother at home because it was too dangerous for women to go, because they would very often get stopped in the street, get beaten, sometimes get arrested for being Jewish. My mom remembers very vividly, I think it's one of her earliest memories, being in kindergarten and being beaten up by fellow, 5-year-olds because they found out that she was a Jew. So obviously I'm living in a slightly different time, but that doesn't mean we don't get reminders every single day. It doesn't mean I don't look at college campuses and think how much pain my mom must feel to see this happening in New York City, for example, and get a reminder of everything that she grew up with, that she actually fled from, not thinking she would ever see it again or that her children would ever have to worry about the same things. So it's strange, considering that we're in America, that it's 2025, that things should have gotten better. But it's also, as Hashem said, we are going to face this kind of hatred till the end of time, and it's up to us, I think now more than ever, to stand up and fight back in the only way that we should. More Torah, more learning, more mitzvahs, and obviously screaming from the rooftop how proud we are to be Jewish.
How many years have you been sort of engaged in trying to address, combat anti-Semitism as an activist? When does it start? How does October 7th affect that?
I started my own actual organization that I wanted to focus more on the relationship between the United States and Israel and making sure our politicians were held accountable for what was going on there, and less about Jews in politics because I felt it was a little too much pitting Jews against each other. And as much as I believe, one side is better for us at this point in time, I don't know how helpful it is to actually pit us against each other politically.
How do you encourage yourself? What's the bigger vision, the dream, to try and overcome the divide?
I mean, I think you have to fight against the divide, because if you asked me, like, who are you? I would say I'm an American, and I would say I'm a Jew. I would not go to a political party or, a job title or anything else. So I think for me, it's remembering that before I am Republican or Democrat or anything else, I'm just a Jewish girl. And no matter what happens in the world, I will, die a Jew like I was born a Jew. And I hope my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren will say the same. So I think it's approaching every conversation as a Jew first, which I think too many people have unfortunately forgotten. These last few years, I understand people get swept up. Things have gotten very intense. But if you're a human first, an American first, a Jew first, I think it becomes a lot easier.
So let me ask you a question about that, because there was a book that was inspired by the murder of, is it Benjamin Pearl in Pakistan? And it was a whole range of prominent leaders writing a short paragraph about what it meant to them to be Jewish. If it was rabbis, Orthodox rabbis, Barbra Streisand and Spielberg and a whole range of people. It's a cliche question, but it's not. It's a very important question. What does it mean to be Jewish?
For me personally?
Yes, yeah.
It's a deep question, and I've obviously thought about it. I mean, for me, being Jewish means knowing that I was put here for a reason. For me, being Jewish means kind of having an internal faith in Hashem without having to see anything in front of me. It's knowing the generations that came before me in one way or another make up a little tiny piece of my soul and can give me strength every single day. And it's strange, but it's knowing how lucky you are. I feel like it's a privilege to be a Jew and to be chosen by Hashem to be a part of that, and to know that He looks after me every single day, and that I have a connection with God that maybe some other people might not feel, even though they have it, but they might not feel it in the same way that I get to feel it, because I'm so immensely confident in the God that I know picked me and picked my family and has protected our people for centuries. It's a strange feeling, and it's like a strange confidence, because I would say I'm not a confident person in general, but I'm very confident in who I am as a Jew. It's like the one thing that I know about myself, and the one thing I can go back to when things are good or when things are bad. I talk to Hashem.
Since October 7th, how has your relationship with God in that way, in whatever way you communicate with Him, how has that been affected?
On the one hand, it's gotten a lot deeper. On October 8th, I didn't know what to do. I mean, the whole world didn't know what to do. We were still, I don't even know if we had all the information about what had happened. But for me, when I was sitting there crying and watching the footage that everyone was watching.
So was that your initial reaction? Just like
sobbing?
Sobbing.
Yes. I mean, I remember.
And what are you thinking?
A little piece of me is almost gone. Like, it feels like a tiny piece of my soul is gone, because
they're destroying your people.
Right, and maybe people don't understand.
This is a whatever you want to call it, let's say a mini Holocaust.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't have happened again, and it's happening. So you're shocked to your core.
I'm shocked, but I'm also like genuinely in physical pain. I don't know how many people get it. Jews always say it, but I think most of us meet it. When one Jew is in pain or suffering, especially for being Jewish, we feel it. So I'm watching these videos and I'm in physical pain. Because, we're watching some of the most horrific things we should ever have to see. I still can't believe that happened in 2025 and was blasted across the internet. But A, you're watching that and you're in physical pain. And then B, it goes back to your question of, your connection with God. You're sitting there wondering why it's happening. And the only answer on October 8th, apart from watching the footage and just praying for every person affected in any way, is trying to be more religious. That's the only thing I could come up with. I said some days.
What do you mean by more religious? Because that word means a whole lot of
things
too. So just what is being more? What does that look like?
Yeah. So growing up, for example, my mom always said, "You're going to be more religious than I was, and your kids will hopefully be more religious than you were." And I didn't even know what she meant.
Are you talking
growing up.
about faith? Are you talking about observance? Are you talking
So,
about studying?
I thought she meant solely observance. And now as an adult, I'm understanding it meant a lot more than that. And it was a lot deeper than that. We did become more observant as I was growing up. And you could tell, like my mom.
Does that happen here in America?
Yes. So you could tell my mom's dream is like kind of coming true because she, left.
So that's what she wanted.
That's all she wanted. Right. Yeah. So she leaves Russia and comes here and has children that get to grow up in a kosher household, with parv and dairy and meat stickers.
That's her dream.
It's her dream. Yeah. It's my grandfather's dream. It's her dream. And it really wasn't my dream growing up. I was happy to do it. I went to a Jewish school. I loved every part of it. I didn't expect it. My mom kind of became slowly more observant when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, and then more and more.
So she doesn't have it in the Soviet Union. And She comes here and there's an opportunity to be observant and religious, and that's why she does it. But you have an experience not having the opportunity. So it doesn't mean quite the same to you as it does to her. But notwithstanding that, that's what your mother wants. And in the back of your mind, that means something to you.
Right. Like, it's the right thing, but it doesn't hit your heart the same way it hits my mom's heart when I was 8 or 9 years old. Okay. And then you grow up. And then you face challenges, and then every time you face challenges, you lean on Hashem.
What sort of challenges do you mean? Just personal,
personal
ordinary
ones.
Stuff?
Yeah.
And then the question is, how do you deal with that?
Exactly. And I did go through a really difficult period when I was younger. Still, no complaints. I had a wonderful life and a wonderful childhood. But when I was 16, I got very, very seriously injured, and it went to a very dark place for a very long time. And
what are you thinking? Like, What's the thinking?
The first few months, it's Hashem, why would you do this to me?
Right, okay.
I had a dream to go to the Olympics.
Wow.
It's a long story short. I was supposed to go to the Olympics.
I didn't have a dream to come to Tokyo.
I trained every single day. I gave up my school and my friends and my life.
Oh, wow. You're totally focused.
Right. Up to 8 hours a day some days. I skated. I was a figure skater. I skated on a broken leg. I broke my back. Wow. I had to skate to the head. I broke my leg. I mean, I went through everything and back. And I always believed if you trained the hardest, you would win.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I have an injury and I'm told I'll probably never walk properly again. My Olympic dream is gone. Wow. And I'm wondering, like, Hashem, why would you do this to me when I was good? I didn't do anything bad, and I practiced and I worked harder, and I treated my friends well and my parents well, and I did what I was supposed to do. And the only thing I've ever wanted is now gone. So a few months, I'd say, were horrible and very difficult, and a lot of crying and not a lot of faith in really anything. And then...
So you're going through this primarily on your own?
Yeah, completely on my own. I have the best support system in the world, but when you're a teenage girl, you don't really want to go cry to your parents. You just want to lock yourself in your room and write in your journal and hope it goes away when you wake up.
So first it's like, why, God, did you do this to me? What's the next phase? How do you get out of that?
Yeah, it's like a very slow process of convincing yourself that Hashem knows better what he's doing. And again, Hashem is in charge, and people go through much worse things than that. So I understand when people have a bigger struggle than I had, obviously. But in my case, I was very depressed, and I was very distraught and very confused. And it went from not understanding why that was my life to trying to search for a different meaning and assuming probably that Hashem was going to grant that to me. And I started praying. I started keeping kosher, decided that I wanted to become more observant, and then understood that when my mom said more religious, she didn't strictly mean more observant. She didn't mean dairy and meat sinks. She meant really feeling like Hashem was in your life 24/7.
Faith and feeling.
Exactly. She didn't, it's like my dad is one of the smartest people in the world. Likes to analyze things. He's a lawyer. I think he's the first Estonian to go to 2 Ivy League schools. Genuinely just a genius. And when you watch him every Shabbat read the Parsha with, a notebook and a highlighter, and, he doesn't read the Parsha to read the Parsha.
You thought there must be something in the Bible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I watch my parents, and I watch my dad, who, unlike my mom, by the way, had less of those dreams because his family really was never religious, even back in the Soviet Union. They just kind of accepted that they couldn't be as Jews. And I don't even know if my dad realized he might have a kosher household one day, whereas my mom always dreamed of it. So to watch my dad look me in the eye every Shabbat and tell me every answer to any question you've ever had is written right here, and I can show you my notes and we can discuss it, and we do.
So in your life, it's precisely because you had that difficulty, that crisis, that you are sort of paying more attention to what you were taught and inspired to do by your father, mother, school. But you sort of, as a result of that difficulty, it became your own. You earned it.
Right.
So it becomes a part of you.
Yeah, it was almost like cheating too, because like there are days when I'm really having a bad day, and even my husband will say, "Go upstairs."
Do you still have bad days?
Yeah, I think we all have bad days. It's not as bad as when I was 16 and truly lost, but we all have horrible days. And even my husband will say, "Go upstairs and talk to Hashem. You feel better after." And
Wow.
I think it's true. It was almost like a weird like cheat code that I found, that I needed to go through something difficult first to find. But even when I don't get answers, we don't always get answers right in front of us, I genuinely feel better after praying or just sitting and talking to Hashem, because I know for a fact that there's something greater and there's something more important, and that someone's looking out for me, and someone that all my faith is in God, of course. And when you remind yourself of that, instead of crying and sitting and looking at my phone like I could be doing instead, even if you don't get the answers, your soul feels better. So it's almost like I discovered an easier way to go through life, because it genuinely changed everything for me.
You're out there, very high profile. You have a social media platform. You're involved in politics. You're engaging a lot of people of influence. I'm sure they say things to you, things that you agree with, things that you don't agree with or strongly don't agree with. Do you actually ever use ideas that you've learned from the Torah to argue your case?
My dad always likes to point out how impressive it is that the Torah, which was written, how many years ago, has not only the same answers, but the same questions and the same stories and the same examples of everything that goes on in our life today. He loves to point that out. He's like, Hashem is way smarter than any of us. You don't need to go out into the world and wonder. You can just read it. Nothing has changed. People haven't changed. The behaviors haven't changed. So I think it's mostly like a deeper concept of knowing that nothing around is a surprise, and Hashem is fully aware of all the good and all the bad, and it's been around long before me, and it'll probably be around long after me.
Do you believe that a day will come where people won't fight against Israel?
No.
You don't?
I don't.
You think the fight goes on forever?
Yeah.
What does the Torah say about that?
Fight goes on forever.
It does and it doesn't.
Right.
There is a utopian age, which we, obviously part of the principles of faith. You see, when we believe in God, that also means that He's good, He's in control of the world, and the story ends well. What role does your Jewish faith identity play in the politics in that world in which you live?
For me, the only reason I do what I do is because I believe Hashem put me there. There's moments in life where I will end up somewhere and it makes absolutely no sense, except if you believe that Hashem is looking out and has a plan. So I genuinely believe what I'm doing is where He wants me to be, because He had placed me on a political campaign and He kept me in the public eye. And there's truly things that happen that I cannot explain, and that's the only explanation. So a part of me really does feel like Hashem wants me here. And whether it's about America, or it's about kindness and decency, or it's about religion, I think in little ways here and there, I'm genuinely just trying to make the world a better place. And it's so funny how people will see me as political. I don't see myself that way. I see it as political right now, and maybe tomorrow it'll be something else. And it's solely because it's what I feel in my heart is right and where I believe Hashem wants me. I don't see myself as a political operative or an activist or any of these things. I just see myself doing what I believe in my heart I should be doing today, and that could change tomorrow. And I just wish more people did things for the right reason. And I don't want to, tout myself or anything else, but it really does surprise me how many people I meet who just seem not only to be doing things that I disagree with, but they just seem so unhappy doing them. I wonder how society convinced people that that was the way to go, and maybe my path is convincing them how easy it is to actually do something else.
So I think you've just figured it out.
There we go.
There's a lot of people who are very confused. They're confused because they're ignorant. We have no idea how ignorant some people are. I think Elon Musk said something. I quote him because he's a bright guy, and if someone says something bright, it doesn't matter who says it.
For sure.
He says the greatest mistake we make in communication, and you're in the communications business, as a matter of fact, we all are, is we assume what we know, the person we're talking to knows.
Right.
which in most cases is not true. So maybe your role is, as you just said, to teach people basics that you have had the privilege of being exposed to, values. You take it for granted. You were exposed to them. They weren't exposed. They don't know it. And therefore, at every juncture and interaction, you're there to tell them what you know, share what you know.
Yeah. And hope that someone's listening.
Huh?
Yeah.
So they are listening.
Yeah. Even if they're not in that moment, they'll remember down the road when they have a difficult moment.
Let's just shift a little and focus on anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is it's not an issue, it's a condition. It almost seems timeless and eternal. What do you think the root cause is? If you had to sum it up in one word, okay? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but you think about these things. Root cause of anti-Semitism in one word.
I mean, you said ignorance. People are ignorant, but it's also because it's easy. It is so easy for people to hate the Jews. It has been done time and time again.
It's normal.
Now it's normalized by so many people. It always seems to work, right? Someone always finds a reason. Either they're twisting history or they're interpreting it wrong, or they're just so hateful because of everything that we have and everything that we are. And it's very easy for a lot of people. And most people don't want to do the work, right? When they're struggling with something or they see those around them struggling with something, they need that scapegoat. They need them quickly. And that's the easiest scapegoat. And it's not new. No one is special for coming up with it.
It's a cheap option,
yeah.
Certainly in terms of blaming someone, something for all the problems. Martin Luther King once said, "We hate what we fear what we don't know." As you said, ignorance. When we say ignorance of the Jewish people, what do you mean? Ignorance of the Jewish people, which means to say, let's try and understand the problem so we can attempt a solution. So what is the world ignorant of?
Knowledge, history, basic
Jewish
facts.
history.
I mean, if you really look far enough, our Jewish history is everyone's history. So it's actually just history.
Correct. And Jewish history has impacted the world, Western civilization, including and especially the United States of America. What do you think, therefore, the solution is? I mean, it is quite obvious. They don't know history. And if they don't know history, they're going to continue to hate us. So what do we do about it?
Like you said, people are either influencers or they're being influenced. I think too many people are too comfortable being influenced. I think, again, because it's easy. It's a lot easier to say, I like the way this one looks or that one sings or whatever else, so I'm going to listen to them on everything. That's a lot easier than shutting your phone off for 4 hours, not keeping up with whatever your friends are doing, and, studying. Studying Torah.
It all goes back to studying Torah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so many basic things that it's the age-old problem of anti-Semitism, and it's the problem that is 2025, which is people being ignorant. It's social media. It's, in general, I think what young people are doing with their day. It's so much more. I think it's a much bigger problem than a hatred of Jewish people. Like you said, that's just a small symptom that is
the problem, which is ignorance.
Yeah, the problem is our society is on a downward spiral, and the first sign is anti-Semitism, but it never stops at anti-Semitism. That's just the easiest symptom to find first. That's where people first lead to when they are lost and broken and don't know what to do. It's like, we'll blame the Jews for our problem. But I think that's step one, and then society is going to crumble after. It's happened time and time again, and the answer is a lot deeper than just educating people on their faulty knowledge on the Jewish people. It's so much deeper, and I try to lead with kindness. I know a lot of people who get into screaming matches, and I just attempt to have conversations with people. Hopefully I can talk to everyone in the world before I die, but I think that people need to really, really, really look into themselves and realize it's not just hating Jews, it's almost hating who you are first and deciding to take that out on someone, and Jews are always the easiest.
If you could speak to the world, okay, what would you focus on in terms of telling the Jewish story, history?
I mean, if I could talk to the world.
Yeah, what would you tell them about the Jewish people in order to try and overcome that ignorance and hate?
A lot of people like to judge Judaism by a politician here who happens to be Jewish, or a model there who wears, again, the bead necklace, so they assume. But the answers to who the Jews are found in the Torah. So no, I mean, like you said, it always goes back. But if I were to talk to the world in general,
You're teaching
right,
teaching the
before,
Torah.
yeah, because you said, what does Judaism mean to you, and why did it help in that horrible state that I was in? It helped because like I said, I'm not a confident person, but when I thought about what I have as a Jew and who I am, it made me like myself for the first time in a very long time. And I think if more people liked themselves, Jewish or not, they'd be filled with a lot less hate. And that's probably the first step to eradicating anti-Semitism. It's not teaching everyone about the Jews. It's teaching everyone to love themselves, to start looking inside for what they like about themselves and how to make themselves better, because that's kind of what's taking away from the real problem. The real problem is not what you feel about the Jews. It's that's the easiest people to hate and blame your problems on because you have an internal struggle. I'd want people to like themselves. And I think that's the root of where most of the problems now come from.
And obviously that applies both to Jewish people who don't know who they are.
Of course.
President Herzog, Chaim Herzog, the current president's father, once said he interviewed some kids in New York, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, and he said they know more about Hitler than they do about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of Jews who don't know who they are. And if Jews don't know who they are, how can we expect non-Jews?
Exactly.
So you've got to teach not just the non-Jews who the Jewish people are, you've got to teach the Jewish people who they are.
Right. And it really will make people's lives better for those listening. It is so much easier to wake up every single day when you actually feel inside like you have a purpose and Hashem put you here for a reason. And when you like yourself and who you are and everything that came before you, it makes everything make sense.
I like to quote Mark Twain, who said the two most important days in your life
Or
are the
you're
day
born,
you're born.
and the day you find out why.
Yeah, and most people don't know their why.
They never find out.
Which is why they're confused and frustrated
Yeah.
and want to let it out on other people. Elizabeth, it's been a pleasure. It's been inspiring. Thanks for coming all the way to Brooklyn.
Thank you for having me.
The Rohr Jewish Learning Institute has the largest collection of Jewish media online. Hit subscribe for more.